everybody, how's it going? Thanks for joining me this afternoon. I am Auron MacIntyre. Before we get started today, I just want to remind you that one of the ways we keep the lights on here is, of course, subscriptions to Blaze TV. And if you want to go to the next step, you need to get Blaze Unlimited. Along with supporting the show, getting all the great behind-the-scenes content from your favorite Blaze hosts, you'll also get access to Frontier Magazine, a fantastic and beautiful publication where you will find my latest article in the current edition. This is the 4th issue, and there's a fantastic deal where if you use promo code Frontier40 when you go to blazeunlimited.com/Auron, not only will you get $40 off your subscription for the first 50 subscribers, but those lucky subscribers will also get digital copies of Frontier 1, 2, and 3. So it's like you didn't miss any of the previous issues. Again, that's blazeunlimited.com/Auron, promo code Frontier40. Well, we had quite the election night on Tuesday. A number of critical elections were happening. One of them, of course, was the mayor of New York. Most people already believed, and they were correct, that Zohran Mamdani would be a shoo-in for that particular race. In addition, I think more critically, we also saw the election of Jay Jones to Attorney General in Virginia. In case you don't remember, Jones is the candidate who had messages leak where he was speaking with a Republican colleague and told that colleague that he wanted to plan the murder of some of his other politicians, some of his political opponents, and that he also was rooting for the death of their children. He wanted to see their children die in their arms. And not only did he send that text, but then when she challenged him, saying, this is inappropriate, this is not how you discuss things, you shouldn't be hyperbolic, he called her to let her know, oh, I meant every word of this. This isn't hyperbole. This is what I really want to happen to these people. And he also gave a justification as to why he was in the right for wishing death on these people, wanting to kill them, wanting their children dead. That man, in the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination, that man was elected to be the top law enforcement officer in the state of Virginia. This is a very bad sign. This is a very bad sign. And the fact that over the last few weeks, the entire conservative movement, rather than focusing on this man and his vile calls for violence, his desperate wish to see the blood of his enemies, the blood of his children, the children of his enemies, to watch them die in their parents' arms. The fact that all of the energy in the entire conservative sphere, the Republican Party, every ad, every talking point, the fact that every bit of this was not focused on defeating this man and showing that there's a cost for calling for violence against Republicans. Instead, we had the entire conservative movement stop and fight, scream, Nazi, 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 I want you dead, Nazi, eliminate this guy, Nazi, Nazi, to other people in the conservative movement. Like that was how time was spent. Now, I think there's a lot more to this than just online bickering. I honestly doubt that the majority of people who were voting in any of these elections were even probably aware that Tucker Carlson even talked to a guy like Nick Fuentes, much less all the controversy surrounding it, the Heritage Foundation, all of this stuff. So I don't think that in and of itself had the largest impact on these races. But it does tell you where the priorities of Conservatism Incorporated are. And they have nothing to do with winning elections. I know, stop me if you've heard this one before. But many people inside the conservative movement are not particularly concerned with winning elections. Now, again, don't get me wrong. Not everybody is a horse race, get out the vote election guy. Okay, I don't need every single person to get out there and do nothing but say, vote, 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 vote. You know how I feel about democracy. So I'm not here saying that, okay, it's every person with a microphone's individual job to do nothing but talk about any given election from day to day. However, when you're in a position where a guy like Jay Jones is actually calling for the death of people, it would behoove you to care more about that than an interview you disagreed with or a group chat that you disagreed with. That maybe there could be some level of interest in the actual, people who are trying to kill us. But that has not been an option And I think a lot of people after this election are turning around and saying, what is going on here? So we're going to dive into the election of these two gentlemen, what it means for the country in general, and the continued fallout that is just kind of rolling through the right wing, the conservative movement as we speak. But before we do that, guys, let's hear from today's sponsor.
Everyone knows that college is a major investment, so it's really important to do your research. You want to find a school that shares your values, but who has the time to dig through all those college websites? Well, today I've got great news for you. There's a free, easy to use resource that does the work for you. It's called ChristianCollegeGuide.com. This online directory of over 250 Christian colleges and universities is a one-stop shop. ChristianCollegeGuide.com lists all the basics such as acceptance rates, tuition costs, and academic majors. But here's what makes this resource truly special. ChristianCollegeGuide.com will show you the school's faith commitments, its campus policies, and its spiritual life. All the info that you will need to find the college you can trust. This is the definitive college guide for Christian higher education, and it's completely free. So if you or someone you know is considering college, go to ChristianCollegeGuide.com to create a free user profile and start today. It's ChristianCollegeGuide.com. All right, guys, I heard some people there in chat saying that my microphone was having an issue. I think that I fixed it, so if you can let me know in chat whether or not the microphone is doing better, I would definitely appreciate it. But while I wait for that, I'm going to go ahead. Okay, I see some people saying that it sounds good now. Okay, yeah, I hit a setting on there that I think fixed that problem. All right, excellent. So, like I said, we had these two elections yesterday. Now, there's one that we kind of knew was going to happen because the New York mayor's race, sadly, New York is lost when it comes to GOP voting. And we kind of knew that as soon as Mamdani won the primary, he was probably going to win the general election as well. So it was kind of considered a shoo-in that ultimately he would come to dominate that election. Now, there are a lot of people talking about what that means today. And I did a whole episode on this, so I'm not going to belabor the point. But I do see that there is a lot of people talking about socialism has won in New York. Socialism has won in the United States of America. Socialism has completely come to dominate our largest city. And guys, Mamdani did not win because he is a socialist. I mean, don't get me wrong, these people do want your stuff. They do want your money. But Mamdani did not win because ultimately he has the correct economic program. He's thought through the theories of Karl Marx and applied them accurately. And now that is not why Zohran Mamdani won. Zohran Mamdani won for a few reasons. The first is that every other candidate involved in this race was obsessed with things outside of New York City. And Mamdani gave answers about New York City. Now, his answers were garbage. I disagree with them. They are poisonous, but they are at least answers germane to the people of that city. They're not about foreign policy. They're not about our greatest ally. They're not about whatever. They're about New York. Again, his solutions are horrible. He is a dumb, evil socialist. But at least he gave answers that were relevant to people's lives. And I'm sorry, but when you're running for the mayor of a place and you talk about the problems facing that place, and all of your other opponents are talking about some other place, you win. Right? Like it's not that hard. This is a lot of what happened with Donald Trump, by the way. Ultimately, even if he didn't hold to his rhetoric as well as I would want, the fact that he was talking about America and America first was a big winning issue. And again, I think Mamdani's answers are terrible, but he was talking about New York. The second reason that Zohran Mamdani won is because New York has been transformed. This is a city that endured 9/11, that watched thousands and thousands and thousands of people die because of Islam. And everyone, including especially the Republican Party, went out of its way to tell everybody, don't be racist. Yes, millions of people are now looking at you. You're all grieving. Thousands of people have died. But whatever you do, don't be racist. Doesn't matter if Islam's a race. Don't get particular. Don't notice that different groups have different beliefs and that those beliefs could be detrimental to you. And so in response, like the good little soldiers that we were, Republicans, we fell in line and said, you know what? You're right. We're not going to hate people. We're not going to be racist. Of course, Muslims can be Americans like everybody else. Of course, they can have American values just like us. I hear a lot about our Judeo-Christian values. I think they're just Christian values. But either way, the one group that wasn't involved there was our Islamic values. But for some reason, these magical values could be adopted by people who weren't part of those traditions. For some reason, the Muslims were able to adopt these values too, even though they're like in direct contradiction to Islamic values. Whatever, right? American values can be adopted by anyone, even Muslims who have an entirely different belief system, an entirely different religion, right? Except they can't, it turns out. I'm sure you'll find Muslims who love the United States, but in general, this is a bad move. These are people who do not assimilate. They take over your country. You don't convert them to your way of life. That's why we're getting Islamic towns in Texas. That's why we're seeing Somalians take over the heartland of the United States. Okay? Because when large numbers of Muslims come here, your country becomes Muslim. Now, Mamdani, to be fair, is barely Muslim. I think he made his announcement today about what he was going to change in front of like 10 liberal women, right? So like, he celebrates the Intifada. Well, I mean, he's got 10 women behind him. Those are going to be his advisors. So yeah, he's obviously a super hardcore traditional Muslim, right? But even then, it's very clear that the final and most important thing that has happened in New York is this transformation demographically. And the people there don't see themselves as part of the New York that was hit by 9/11. They certainly don't see themselves connected to Heritage America in any way. They don't see themselves as part of the tradition. They don't see themselves as part of the culture. America is a place for them to loot. America is a place where they can go to get free stuff. America is a place where they can live better lives because they are taking things away from people who built them. There's a name for that. It's called an invasion. When a large number of military-age men cross your border and then take your stuff, they are not immigrating. They're not refugees. They're invaders. And Zohran Mamdani is the head of the invasion coalition. That's what he is. Yes, he's a Marxist, but not even really. Yes, he's a Muslim, but not even really. What he really is the head of a coalition of people who don't see themselves as American and never will. They're paperwork Americans. Yeah, they crossed the border. They sat here for 5 years. They raised their hand. But they don't believe in anything that's American. They have no interest in integrating into American society. They're not changing their way of life. In fact, they believe America needs to change for them. They're entitled. They think that they deserve everything you have. And Zohran Mamdani is there to give it to them. Zohran Mamdani is the head of a gang of thieves. He is the head of a bandit party. He's raiding your country with a smile and a suit. That's it. That's why he's a problem. And that's why he got elected. I'll play the video in a second to show you more about that. Before I do, I want to talk about Jay Jones. So Jay Jones obviously said something that is absolutely beyond the pale in any context. He said he wanted to murder his political opponents. He said he wanted to see the children of his political opponents dead. And when he was challenged on this fact, saying that was an inappropriate joke, he turned around and said, "That's not a joke. I mean it. And I'm going to call you and tell you why I'm justified in holding that position." Now, I'd like to contrast for that for a second with the Young Republican group chat. Now, there are some statements in there that were bad jokes, but they were private jokes. They were not meant for public consumption. They were not like statements that these people really believed and really stood behind and were basing policy on. Nobody in that group chat would turn around and call someone and be like, "No, I defend everything I said in that chat no matter what." They were jokes. Maybe you might think they're bad jokes. That's fine. They're jokes. They were not serious assertions. And yet those people were canceled. We stopped the entire conservative movement from caring about what Jay Jones said to talk to those people. By the way, that's exactly what the liberals planned, right? There's no coincidence that after the Jay Jones text leak, someone hunted down another text string that they could use to throw at the Republicans. This was an obvious and clear weapon thrown directly at the conservative machine by the Democrats. And guess what? Con Inc. ran towards it and dove on that grenade all day long. Because they're not there to win. They don't represent you. They hate you. That's what the conservative establishment is there to do. They are there to hate you. So the Democrats are there to win. And I'm sure there are Democrats who did not like what Jay Jones said. And guess what? They didn't care. And instead, they went out and they found Oppo research and they just threw a Hail Mary, knowing that conservatives are completely incapable of avoiding chasing the leftist news cycle. If a leftist dangles a story in front of a conservative commentator, 9 times out of 10, they will swallow it hook, line, and sinker. And not only will they swallow it, they will swallow the frame attached to it. So yeah, of course the Republican Party is full of secret Nazis. Of course it's full of secret fascists. And I am a good one. I'm one of the good ones. Look at me, I'm one of the good ones. And I'm here to rescue you from the evil Nazis that are in my own party. Half of the conservative movement stopped to do this in the middle of an election season, with a clear scandal on the left with a guy who's planning to murder you and your children. That's just the text messages. I'm not even getting to the part with Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes and all of that. Just the text message is so incredibly dumb. And it's not dumb, it's malicious. I'm done pretending these people don't know what they're doing. They are controlled opposition. They are controlled opposition who are determined to destroy the MAGA movement and return the right back to the days of Jeb Bush and Mitt Romney. They've even come out and say it at this point. Oh, I can't wait to replace J.D. Vance with Ron DeSantis. We're already seeing this. Marco Rubio instead of J.D. Vance. Sean Davis made a point that this is all a proxy war on J.D. Vance, and it's really hard not to notice at this point. These are people who are fighting for control of has been for decades, for my entire life, nothing but a controlled opposition movement. We are finally winning. We are finally seeing some results. We finally have a president who says, I'm shutting the border down, and he did. Say whatever you want about Donald Trump's other policy initiatives, the border is effectively closed after it let in 8 million people under Joe Biden. Roe v. Wade is overturned. Affirmative action in college admissions overturned. They're looking at the Voting Rights Act now. The Voting Rights Act. That's how much things have shifted under Donald Trump. And yet, these people are desperate to take us back to Mitt Romney. We got to go back to Mitt Romney. We have to go back to Mitt Romney. That's it. That's the only thing they'll take. That is the only allowable thing here. And look, I want us to just focus on winning. I really do. I want to talk about Jay Jones the whole time. But I don't know what to do with these people. They won't stop trying to cancel people inside the conservative movement for not agreeing with them on foreign policy. And in case you're wondering, oh, is he blowing things out of proportion? Is that not what? No, let's go. Let's go to some posts here so we can take a look at what our glorious overlords have been trying to push. So here is second. So here's Mike Pence's latest. He's coming out with a book. I'm sure this money laundering scheme will be great. No one's going to buy a book from Mike Pence. It'll be a bunch of conservative organizations who are funneling, doing money laundering, buying copies of his book, if anything. And Mike Pence says, he says, there's no room in the conservative movement for opposing American support for Israel. There is no room in the conservative movement for opposing America's support of Israel. There's no room for anti-Semitism. There's no room for Jew hatred. There's no room for, no. If you have any questions, if you have any good faith interest in saying, hell, why are we sending so much money to a rich country? Why can't they handle these things on their own? Is this in America's interest? Nothing untoward, nothing salacious. Basic questions like, why are we in alliance with the UK? Don't think I'm going to get anyone thrown out of the conservative movement. I just said it. No one's going to do that. Hey, maybe we don't need diplomatic ties. Maybe we don't need to be sending money to Egypt anymore. No one's going to get angry. But they will get angry and say, you have no place in the conservative movement if you even question American support for Israel. And there's absolutely no room in the conservative movement for anti-Semitism. Carlson, Bannon, and Pence said are part of the isolationist movement on the right that is contrary to the long tradition of conservative movement in this country. There it is. There's the truth. That's what this is really about. There's the actual truth. Nobody who is tired of the neocon, endless foreign war policy is allowed in the Republican Party. No one who doesn't think America has to continue to operate as a global empire, sending our blood and treasure across the world so that we eventually just ship these people back into the United States. Nobody who believes we should stop doing that is allowed in the Republican Party. It's all war all the time. And if you disagree, you don't belong here. And apparently one of the keys to that goal is constant support for Israel. Because you have to be blind to recognize that doesn't seem to be benefiting us. It keeps putting us in the middle of these foreign wars. So Mike Pence says these people, like Bannon, who were key to the Trump administration, who have been a standard bearer for this movement, doesn't belong in it. That's what they're trying to do. That's it. That's the entire thing. And Vance is a problem for them because they can kind of tell Vance is done with this. I know some people are like, oh, Vance isn't perfect. Okay, fine. But they clearly see him as a threat. And he needs to go. And everyone around him who might support him or agree with him has to go. So Mike Pence making it clear there is just no place in the conservative movement for any disagreement on Israel. If you disagree, you will be expelled. Now, I want to go back to Mamdani real quick before I go further into the conservative drama, because I want you to at least hear what he said. So after he's winning here, he says, guess who this movement's for?
Thank you to those so often forgotten by the politics of our city who made this movement their own. I speak of Yemeni bodega owners and Mexican abuelas, Senegalese taxi drivers and Uzbek nurses, Trinidadian line cooks and Ethiopian aunties. Yes, aunties. To every New Yorker in Kensington and Midwood.
So who is the Mamdani coalition? A lot of people will race and say, "Oh, look, affluent white people did vote for Mamdani." And yes, you're right. Woke people did vote for Mamdani. The educated, wealthy whites in New York, a lot of them did vote for Mamdani. But overwhelmingly, when you look at the stats, the people supporting Mamdani, there's a disproportionate amount of support from people who are not native New Yorkers. And he makes it clear. He makes it clear here. Who is it? It's the Yemenis. It's the Mexicans. It's the those from Senegal, from Uzbek, from Trinidad, from Ethiopia. These are my people. What do these people have in common, guys? Do they have religion in common? Do they have Marxism in common? What do they have in common? They all hate you. They all aren't American. They all came here for your stuff. He's the guy who leads the coalition of third worldists. That's it. The Marxism, the Islam, it's all secondary. He leads the coalition of third world anti-Americans. That's who he rules over. That's what he's relying on. And this is how democracy works. Republicans have to get over the idea, conservatives have to get over the idea that democracy is ideological. Oh, the best ideas win. No, they don't. Zohran Mamdani has the worst ideas, and he wins. And he wins because he is heading the anti-American coalition. It's not about your values. It's not capitalism versus socialism. It's not about hard work versus, I don't know, whatever, the welfare state. He's leading a coalition of non-Americans who want to steal your stuff. It's not ideological, it's identity. The woke was not put away. The woke was never going to be put away. The Democratic Party is the party of wokeness because the Democratic Party is the party of dismantling America and handing it to foreigners. That is where they get all of their political power. It's where they get all of their political support. It is tribal to its core, and it will not change. These people are not going to stop being tribal because you lectured them about Thomas Jefferson, who was way more tribal anyway than you are, or probably even they were. They're not going to stop voting for people who look like them, or more importantly, don't look like you, just because you gave them some lecture on Alexander Hamilton or the beauty of the Constitution. They don't care. That guy has a foreign last name. He's going to give me the stuff of the people who live in the country who I hate right now. I'm voting for him. The end. Marxist, Islamic, whatever. That's what he is. That's who he is. That's what he represents. None of this is changing. None of this is going to change. The only option is to deport all of these people and end immigration. That's it. They should be deported. The left imported these people for the specific purpose of altering our elections, hacking our democracy. If you care about anything in our system, if you have any interest in preserving it, you cannot allow it to operate like this. Now, I don't know that's even an option. Again, I've made the point many times. I think where we're at, the representative republic is far in the rearview mirror. But if you, conservative, think that it can be saved, I don't want to hear about it unless you're telling me I'm planning a ban on Muslim immigration. I support a ban on Muslim immigration. It should be easy to say. Even from conservatives now, I'm hearing that Islam is the problem. Okay, I've got the solution. Send them home. Tell them to stop coming here. The end. I fixed it. It's not about assimilation. It's not about telling them about the wonders of the Constitution. It's about closing the border and sending them home. There are no other solutions. All other solutions are lies. But don't worry, there are still lots of people pushing the opposite. So here is Rob Smith, which is just, don't get me started on Rob Smith and his gay hookup line commercials. But here's Rob Smith, a conservative who's been on all over Fox News and PragerU and like all these places, right? Like this guy is everywhere. And what does he say? Why did the Democrats win these elections? What could it be? You'll never guess. You'll never guess.
So Republicans lost Virginia, New Jersey, and Zohran Mamdani is the new mayor of New York City. Republicans, white boy summer is over and a cold winter is here.
Boom! Take that, white man. This is your fault. Don't worry. It's only going to be more your fault.
And the reason that I'm saying this is this. Now, there's been this concentrated effort over the past 10 months that I have seen where a lot of people in the Republican Party and in the conversation on X and all of this stuff have kind of tried to retcon Trump's and the Republicans' win. And they've kind of tried to ignore and erase that new coalition that brought Trump into power. These blacks, these gays, these Jews, these Asians, these Latinos.
So I have terrible news for Rob. Every word he just said is a provable lie. Okay? So, sorry, but if you look at the basic voting numbers, okay, blacks continued to vote 80% for the Democratic Party. Trump made almost no gains with the African American community. Sorry, the brothers are not flipping, as my buddy Steve Deace says. This is a lie. It's been a lie my entire life. The black vote has not and will not be coming to the Republican Party. I'm sorry. I sure hope I'm wrong. I'd love to have them. By all means, vote away. I'm not turning away black votes, but it's just not happening. And telling me that this is what won Trump an election is a bald-faced lie. This is also true of Jewish votes. Despite everything happening after October 7th, everything happening between Israel and Palestine and the left completely abandoning Israel and everything, guess what? Guess what the stalwart support that the Republican Party provided for Israel, guess what that actually did? Guess what its crusade against anti-Semitism did? Nothing. Jews are the second most likely group to monolithically vote for the left. About 70%. Now, Orthodox Jews are far more likely to vote for Trump, but unfortunately, there's a dwindling amount. I mean, they're having more children, so eventually they'll outpace secular Jews, but the majority of Jews are secular. They're either mildly observant or not observant at all, and they vote liberal every time. No matter what, they don't care. They don't care. You're pandering to them means nothing. It's gotten you nowhere. You're winning nothing in that area. Asians, same. Despite having a complete streak of anti-Asian violence, like Asian people just getting completely beaten by black people, it was blamed on whites, and they continue to vote the same way. Again, there are groups of Asians who are concerted Republican voters. I'm happy to have them. But the narrative that they're winning the election for Donald Trump is just false. Again, gays overwhelmingly voting for Trump. Are you kidding me? Okay, I'm sure he picked up some percentage of gay voters, but first, the gay population in the United States is very low. Not quite as low as the Jewish population, actually. That's even lower, I'm pretty sure. But it's quite low. And so winning in the Jewish vote, which we didn't, or winning in the gay vote, which we didn't, still would get you almost no voters. You're better off getting 2% of the white vote than you are getting more Asian or Jewish voters. Or sorry, well, I think probably even more Asian voters, but definitely more gay or Jewish voters. There's just more white Americans still, despite everyone's best efforts, than there are these other groups. And so winning their vote is more likely to win things for you. So no, I'm sorry. The only group that Rob mentioned that did see a definitive shift towards Trump was Latino men. It's not Latinos across the board. It's mostly Latino men. And that was a sizable growth. And that's encouraging. So if Rob had kept his comments to the one group that actually increased its voting for Trump, he might have made a decent case. Still would have been a problem. Still wouldn't have been accurate, but would have been much closer to the truth. But no, because guess what? It's all identity politics. It's all identity politics. The GOP is fine with identity politics. Standard bearers of Conservative Incorporated are fine with identity politics, as long as the identity politics is relegated to the groups the left says are allowed to practice identity politics. Rob is fine with identity politics for blacks. He's fine with identity politics for gays. He's fine with identity politics for Jews. He's fine with identity politics for Asians. And you notice he collected that whole coalition against who? Who is he contrasting it against? White Americans. So he and Zohran Mamdani are looking at the same fault line because they're both for identity politics for everyone but Americans. So there you go. Like, I don't know how we can make this any more obvious, but in case we need to make it a little more obvious, Rob does.
All of these non-traditional conservatives that came in, I think that they've been allowed to kind of like operate under the delusion that this was like white men saved Western civilization and we showed up and we did it and now we're going to run DC and it doesn't matter what anybody else says, because if you're black in DC, if you're a black Republican, then you're DEI. We don't need you. We don't need all these gays. In fact, the gays that are working in DC don't even show up to an event that's for you, okay?
Why are conservatives having gay events in DC? Can anyone explain that to me very slowly? What is the Republican Party? What is the Republican Party? Because it's not the party of winning. So it certainly doesn't need to reach out to a tiny percentage of the population of gays and say, you are the critical thing that makes our coalition work. In fact, we're supposed to be the party of Christianity and traditional values and family values. So why are the conservatives, who obviously don't care enough to stop screaming at each other about a group text chat, why are they courting gay men as some kind of like critical electoral block? It makes no sense until you realize that the conservative movement is not a conservative movement that is interested in being a real political party. It's there to contain you. It's there to bring the left into the right and normalize what the left believes. So gay marriage was something everyone in the United States more or less opposed, all the way up to like 2008, including when California, one of the most leftist states in the country, voted to ban gay marriage. Voted to ban gay marriage in California in 2008. The left was largely okay with banning gay marriage. Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, I support traditional marriage when they were running because they had to, even as Democrats. And now in 2025, the Republican Party has to accept gays, not just getting married, but being part of the leadership of the conservative party. And if you don't agree with that, you probably lost us the election, white man.
Because you should feel lucky that you're in the administration. Like, we have seen all of this stuff over the past 10 months, and it just does not jibe with the reality of the situation. Because the reality is this: if this straight white Christian man stuff that's going on X, if that was really the leadership of the Republican Party, and that was really who was coming out to save the party, then they would have showed up in New Jersey to vote. They would have showed up in Virginia to vote. They would have showed up in New York to vote for Curtis Sliwa.
Yeah, man. Why didn't all those white people in New York show up to vote? Oh, because we replaced them. They don't live there anymore. We ethnically cleansed the white people from our major cities. We replaced the voting base with third worlders who showed up and voted the way that Rob expects people to vote, by skin color and sexual identity. I remind you, this is a conservative stalwart. This guy is in major conservative publications and videos and platforms. And to be clear, I'm not calling for this guy to be canceled, okay? I'm glad. This guy is fantastic. Don't take the glad pun too far. I'm happy that this guy is saying stuff like this, because, man, this is just mask right off. Right off, man. Who is the Republican Party for? Not you, white Christian man. Nope. Republican Party, it's for all the Democratic clients now. Won't someone politically represent the gay community? Won't someone politically represent the black community? Won't someone politically represent every community but white Christian Americans? If we could just get one more conservative to crap on white Christian America, man, that would be fantastic. But here he is, right? Like, I don't know what else to tell you. All right, so let's hit some other fantastic moments here. In case you didn't catch this, there are a couple other pieces of drama to come out of this. And guys, I'm sorry. I try not to do day-to-day drama as much as I have been last week, but I'm sorry. There really is just there's nothing else to talk about. This is literally like the entire battle at the moment. If the conservative movement can't figure this out, we're toast. We're done. Right? Like this a friend enemy distinction has been drawn directly through the middle of the party. I would not have fought this battle now. I absolutely would not. This is a stupid, dumb, reckless time to fight this battle. But every person I have said we need to stop doing this to has immediately turned around and said, well, if the other guys would just stop, and it's like, okay. Right. It's like when you're trying to fight to stop a fight between a couple, and both of them are just like, well, if the other person would just stop doing this, like, okay, well, this isn't going anywhere. Like, these people have to have some level of common ground. And if they don't have that level of common ground, if they can't even look at the other and say, okay, I can see how you have a different position than me, and maybe we can find a way to work towards it. It's just immediately, it's the other person's problem. Then it's very difficult to find a way to stop this, right? Like it's amazing. I've seen several people who were like demanding that we slam the brakes on the car in the middle of an election season, turn it around, and beat Tucker Carlson within an inch of his life for like reading the Bible at Charlie Kirk's funeral or talking to Nick Fuentes. Like those same people were like, how could these people, disrupt our election cycle by talking to Nick Fuentes? Like, you didn't have to make this the entire thing right before an election. You didn't have to run around screaming, there are Nazis in my party. There are Nazis in my party right before you asked people to vote for your party. Like, if you had a basic level of self-control, any amount of emotional continence, at the very least, you could have said, elections in 2 weeks. Clearly, Jay Jones, the whole text scandal, the whole point of that is to throw us off. So maybe we're going to have this long knife moment for the conservative movement. Maybe the neocons are going to knife fight the new right. But we're going to wait 3 weeks until we can get a guy who doesn't want us dead running Virginia's police departments. Like, if you had any level of political discipline at all, you would have done that. But instead, it's, oh, no, why did you make us go around screaming Nazi? Why'd you force us to do it's like, this is the conservative political equivalent of a guy being like, why did you make me hit you in front of our friends to his girlfriend, right? Like, this is just so obvious and so stupid, but it gets worse. Okay. So obviously we know everything going on with kind of the right in general, but this is Brett Cooper. If you're not familiar with Brett Cooper, she was a very popular host on the Daily Wire. She left what seems to be like a lot of personal differences, but she seems to have left on better terms than someone like Candace Owens, and she's doing her own thing now. She's doing fine. She didn't really need the Daily Wire at the end of the day. But she committed the most terrible sin of all. She noticed that some people are more loyal to Israel than they are to the United States.
Around it in response, you are so blinded by your ridiculous, insane hatred of Tucker Carlson that you cannot see how irresponsible and hypocritical you are being. I mean, these tweets from Ted Cruz, I'm going to read you next, are a great example of this. So just a month ago, he tweeted this. He said, they don't kill you because you're a Nazi. They call you a Nazi so they can kill you. Political violence is a left-wing phenomenon. Enough is enough. We need to shut it down. And then in response to Fuentes and Tucker this week, he tweeted this. Trump's bombing of the Ayatollah's nuclear facilities made the little Nazi mad. Good. So now you're turning around and you're calling somebody that you don't like a Nazi. You're doing this out of blind rage because you're so angry that the conservative base's attitudes are rapidly changing, that Nick Fuentes is getting national attention. And so you have turned around and in response, you are compromising your own values and anger, which is such a dangerous precedent to set. And
so she points out here the obvious hypocrisy from Ted Cruz, right? Who said, correctly, by the way, same thing I said, might even heard it from me, that when you have people out there calling Nazi, calling fascist, they are calling for violence against you. If they call you a Nazi, they call you a fascist, they are justifying violence against you. Ted Cruz said that at first, and he was right when it was in response to Charlie Kirk. Now, Ted Cruz and all of his little minions on Conservative Incorporated are running around and doing exactly this, calling everyone they disagree with a Nazi. And it's an open call for violence. That's it. Randy Fine did this. And earlier in this episode, she talks about Randy Fine and says, Randy Fine, you're so dedicated to Israel. It would just be better if you went to Israel. Like, you seem to love it more than America. Like, you're going out of your way to scream and screech and threaten people and try to get people killed just for disagreeing with you on Israel. And people lost their minds. She's an anti-Semite. She hates Jews. She's telling them to go back to Israel. She's saying he has dual loyalty. I mean, she's looking at what he's saying. He's screaming about this stuff. And then he's calling people Nazis. She's noticing the same behavior here. And what do we get from was Auron Wexler here? Never call anyone a Nazi, even if they're Nazi, openly declaring that they're Team Hitler because you said it wrong to misuse them in Nazi. Okay, so obviously, okay, white Candace Owens. What is a Nazi then? So again, these people are going to spiral and they're going to continue to spiral and they're losing. Okay. I want to make it really clear. They are losing and they're going to lose. And the only question is, how many people are they going to hurt and how much of the conservative movement do they need to destroy before they are gone? They're going to lose this and they're either going to go to the Democrats or they're going to splinter off. This is the next round of Never Trumpers, guys. Sorry, Bill Kristol is going to have people right behind him. David French is going to have people right behind him. This is the new staff of the Bulwark. Okay, these people will not survive the conservative movement. They are going to go somewhere else. And they're going to lose. They're going to lose. And so the only question is, how many careers can they destroy? How many institutions can they destroy before this is all done? That's the only question. Because if you're spiraling out on literally everyone in the new media space, it's not just Tucker Carlson. And pretending it's just Tucker Carlson is ridiculous. They're spiraling out on people like Brett Cooper. They're spiraling out on people like Steve Bannon. They're spiraling out on people like me. They're spiraling out on Matt Walsh. Like, the question at this point is how many hosts can the Daily Wire have simultaneously attacking and being attacked over pro and anti-Israeli positions? I mean, don't get me wrong. We all have different opinions inside organizations. That's one of the nice things about the Blaze. I don't get any pressure to have the same opinion as another host here. And they don't get any pressure to have the same opinion as me. Now, I hope that's the case of the Daily Wire. I mean, obviously, I don't know what happened with Brett Cooper. But guys like Matt Walsh are still there, and they're saying things that obviously are not approved of by other members of the Daily Wire. And he's fine. So that's good. Hopefully that continues to be the way that they operate. But when you have people going after people like Brett Cooper for just saying, like, the most obvious thing in the world, here's what Ted Cruz believes when he's attacking people. Here's what he believes when a conservative is attacked. They're diametrically opposed to each other. Like, this makes her the white Candace Owens. Because there's no distinguishing between these behaviors, right? And that's what these people want. They want to collapse everyone down, find one or two bad actors, and collapse everyone down to being these people. So you're Nick Fuentes and you're Candace Owens. And it doesn't matter, as Mike Pence pointed out, there is no room for one step away from neocon foreign policy in the conservative movement. No room. You will be canceled. You will be thrown out. And if you can get away with pushing against everything else, but the one thing you can't get away with pushing back against is neocon foreign policy in the conservative movement, then the conservative movement is neocon policy. If you can be gay, if you can be trans, if you could be a porn star, a former porn star, if you could be someone who advocates for infinite foreign wars, if you can be somebody who is advocated for the offshoring of American industries and the destruction of American jobs, if you can do all of that stuff and still be welcome inside the Republican Party, but the one thing you can't do is oppose neocon foreign policy, then that is what the conservative movement is. That's it. It's real simple. You can break this down real easy. Where is the distinction drawn? We found the line. These guys are very clear. You want to see a little more? You want to see a little more about how clear it is? Here is a guy named Evan Myers. He's somebody who works at the Heritage Foundation, and apparently he has been credited with helping to draft part of Kevin Roberts' book. He's the head of the Heritage Foundation that stood originally behind Tucker Carlson, and allegedly was involved in also drafting his original statement. And in the wake of all of this, there has been a commission that has been opened up by the Heritage Foundation, some like anti-Semitic tribunal, basically, right? It's a woke cancellation court, just like you would see at any of American universities that destroyed people's lives. And they're now making demands from the Heritage Foundation. Apparently, one of the things they wanted to do was hold Shabbat dinners for the members of the Heritage Foundation. Now, fair enough, you can hold the dinner. A little weird, but you can hold the dinner. You want to improve relations, maybe. I get that. But this guy's concern, I think pretty reasonably, given the fact that everyone is trying to cancel them left and right, is that these dinners are going to be mandatory. That by offering these dinners, you will have more or less required us to attend them. I'll play this real quick. This is, and to be clear, this was apparently supposed to be a private comment. It was recorded and showed anyway, which means the Heritage Foundation is basically entirely compromised, or any of its interactions with this board is, because you can't say anything in private. You will be canceled in public. You are being surveilled. You are being recorded. These people are looking to cancel you. This is just a mass woke cancellation campaign inside the right. That's all there is to it. It's indistinguishable from an HR corporate struggle session. It's indistinguishable from an American university Maoist struggle session. It even has the awkwardly named tribunals that are demanding apologies and attendance of rituals. You gotta put on the African shawl and bow towards the sun god. Like, this is the kind of stuff they're demanding people do now.
Thank you, Mike. That's a hard act to follow, but you did a really good job. And I just want to say I'm grateful for all of our colleagues who are speaking out today, and especially for our colleagues on the National Task Force to Combat Anti-Semitism. I'm especially grateful for their work. I also have a question about it, given some of the leaks that occurred.
So sorry about the sound again. This is like third hand recorded, so it's a little hard. That's why it's a good thing that the subtitles are playing as well. But he says, look, there's this national coalition to end anti-Semitism that we're super grateful for, because it's definitely not, I have no gun to my head. This is fine. We're all fine. However, I have noticed a gun on my back, and I just wanted to ask, is the gun going to be fired? Will the gun be fired if I try to walk away?
Yesterday. Right now, the National Task Force to Combat Anti-Semitism is demanding that Heritage host Shabbat dinners with Heritage interns and junior staff. The faith of many Christians here at Heritage, myself included, would prevent us from attending these dinners in good conscience. As you know, for many Christians, Friday is a special day of prayer and abstinence to commemorate the death of Christ. I assume that no staff will be required to attend the Shabbat dinners, but my concern is that these dinners will serve as a sort of informal litmus test. And I'm worried that they will hurt many Christians who are not anti-Semitic, but don't feel comfortable attending a Shabbat dinner. I would like to know how you guys would respond to that concern, and how we can be sure that the dinners won't be used that way when the people requesting them or someone has already been leaking them to the media.
So he says here, this task force is making demands of the Heritage Foundation. Cool that's a thing that exists. And one of these, and I read through the different demands. Lots of, you need to apologize, you need to bow. There's a lot of scraping that needs to go on. But the last one is, we would also like to hold these dinners. Now, the phrasing is 5 demands and 1 we'd like to, if you look at the actual request. So they didn't say technically, we demand you have these dinners. But in our list of 6 demands, 5 of them are listed as demands, and the 6th one, well, it's just a suggestion. But you, Christian guy, wouldn't want to stop clapping before everybody else, right? Like, you'll be attending the dinners, right? Like, you wouldn't want to be one of the guys who doesn't show up to the party meeting. Like, That's kind of where we're at. And this guy has, I think, the pretty legitimate question of, as a Christian, I don't feel comfortable attending this Jewish ritual as a requirement. So I just want to make sure we're not going to be like punished as members of Heritage for not attending another faith's celebration. Entirely reasonable. Well, that guy is getting smeared everywhere now. All the responses under this are, this is a political hit, and he needs to be removed, and this is anti-Semitic, and of course all of this is voluntary. We would never think of applying any kind of undue pressure to you. Of course, it's not like your entire organization right now is going through a struggle session where we're definitely not hunting down and trying to eliminate anyone unloyal to our cause. No, of course not. No, don't, just make sure you're there. Again, you don't have to look at this and think anything, but here's a guy who's just making sure he's not getting in trouble for not showing up to another religious thing he doesn't agree with. But now this is just like the end of the world, because of course it is. And this is kind of where we're at right now. So I'm gonna be honest. I'm not particularly hopeful about this stuff. I don't think the purity spiral is too intense. There's bad blood on both sides at this point. And again, as somebody who is not enthusiastic about America's current diplomatic relationship with Israel, let me say there are plenty of bad actors on my side. Okay, I am not blind to that. I'm not saying that some of the behavior has not been poor, that the rhetoric has not been poorly chosen, that there aren't a bunch of people who are saying things that they shouldn't on my quote unquote side of this issue. But there has to be space for people in the conservative movement with my side of this issue. And it is very clear the other side is saying that is not acceptable at all. Sorry, you're not part of the coalition. We're looking for other people. We got some people to replace you with. We don't need you anymore. And that's just not working. And it's not, again, I want to make it clear, and I say this to people who I'm friends with on the side. You guys have lost the public relations battle. What you hold is the institutions and the purse. And those are powerful things. I am a fan of elite theory. Okay? So I am someone who believes the purse and the public institutions can move mountains. And they have been moving mountains for decades. But they can no longer distort this issue any longer. I'm sorry. People under 40, 45, 50, they're going to be asking these questions. They want a far more amicable, if not entirely just removal of a relationship with Israel. That's going to continue. Sorry. And you cannot scream anti-Semite enough to make that stop. All the money and all the institutional power in the world aren't going to stop this, because this is all coming up from the new class of younger people who are being moved into your movement. You can hate that. You can disagree with that, but that is the reality. And so you're going to have to make a new case to them. You're going to have to explain to them why Israel and American relationships are beneficial to America. And I'm going to need more than they've got intelligence. Fine. What do we spend? $4 billion every year minimum going to Israel? Put $4 more billion into a new intelligence organization. Boom, done. Problem solved. But we're not going to do that, are we? Because that's not really the point. And everybody can tell, man. Everyone can tell. Okay. So you have to start speaking some sense to people. And you have to stop attacking people like Brett Cooper and calling them white Candace Owens because they disagree with you. You have to stop doing videos where you tell me that the gay, black, Latino, Asian alliance is going to save the Republican Party. Come on, man. Nobody's falling for this anymore. If we want to win elections and we want to stop the try to people who are trying to kill us, you got to stop doing this. This is a joke. Anyway, let's head over to the questions of the people here real quick. Herb Seasoning says, all right, man, Industrial and Rush were a no. How about gent bands that you enjoy? animals as leaders, Meshuggah, etc. Anyway, the only people that want us dead more than the DNC is the GOP establishment at this point. I mean, I don't know if they want us dead as bad, but I mean, we can see the language they're throwing around, and it's not different from the left, so that's cool. When it comes to the industrial, I do like some bands. Meshuggah is good. I also like Periphery. Right, that's the name of that one. Yeah, right. They're pretty good. I'm not as up on gent. I haven't listened to a ton of it. I have liked some of the stuff, though. Again, progressive. So progressive metal is a weird line for me, just like progressive rock. I tend to like things approaching progressive, but I don't like them once they turn into progressive. Right. So I enjoy the more progressive bouts of things like Iron Maiden or different power metal bands. But once we get entirely into like Dream Theater, I'm just trying to figure out like 19 different time signatures for the fun of it. You tend to lose me because at that point we're kind of sacrificing musicianship, or I shouldn't say musicianship. These people are all eminently talented performers. We're sacrificing the listenable quality of music a lot of times so we can show off our musicianship, and that's where it becomes a problem. There are 1,000 people that can play faster than Jimi Hendrix ever did at this point. There's 1,000 guys probably in my county in Florida that can play faster than Jimi Hendrix did. But Jimi Hendrix had a soul that changed the instrument, right? There's 1,000 people that can learn to do what Eddie Van Halen did. But Van Halen will always have his place. So it's one of those things where, at some point the technical mastery does kind of overtake, I think, the music itself. And that's kind of where you start to lose me when it comes to progressive metal and rock. Wildspeaker 94 says, I'm tired of the GOP looking everywhere else for votes except the one constituency that always votes and shows up for them whites. Well, and yeah, that's another thing I meant to mention when Rob was talking, right? One of the big increases for Trump, a group that he lost and then gained quite a bit in during the last election, was white women. We hear a lot about liberal white women and how they're the downfall of the United States. And excuse me, don't get me wrong. There are certainly many bad liberal white women out there. But actually, there were far more, especially married women, voting for Trump this time around. It was a big shift. Almost, the other story worth talking about along with Latino men. But we didn't hear anything about that from Rob, and we really don't hear about it from anyone else either. Wonder why that is. Chan the Man says, couldn't even last year before self-sabotage. Yes, sadly, that's exactly correct. Cherry Coke Nixon says, Jay Jones will win feels like yet another Rubicon cross. The right too busy with petty Israel infighting to defeat the left in 2026. Scary. Yeah, I saw someone make a tweet to the effect of, this is basically like you're in the middle of like the pre-Spanish Civil War, and all the right wants to do is argue about like the foreign policy adventurism somewhere in, I don't know, Bangladesh, right? Like that's kind of like people are literally like murdering each other and bombing each other, but we need to stop and fight inside our political coalition about like some foreign country somewhere, as if we don't have the real problems here at the end of the day. He also says, do the results in New York, Virginia, California portend a resurrection of wokeness? Like I said, I don't think wokeness went anywhere, man. I think it laid low for 6 minutes, for a few seconds as the Democrats licked their wounds, and they're right back to it. Jay Warville says, you can get away with embracing non-conservative social positions. You cannot get away with affirming Zionism and replacement legal migration. That's what conservatism is. Yeah, therefore, that's what conservatism is. Again, hard to argue. Very, very hard to argue at this point. Chan the Man says, 2026 looks bleak. In filibuster, pack the court. Yeah, I mean, that you should just be doing that no matter what. The Democrats cannot return to power, guys. We're already returning people to power who want us dead. Literally putting them in charge of the state. When people who want you dead are in charge of the state, there aren't a lot of options left to you. So now is the time to change that. And we are not doing that at all. Manayud says, in multiracial societies, you don't vote in accordance with your economic interests and social interests. You vote in accordance with your race and religion. The great Lee Kuan Yew of Singapore. Yeah, I mean, Lee Kuan Yew is, of course, correct, which is why he operated an authoritarian government in his multi-ethnic, multiracial country, and it works. If you want multiracialism, you want multiculturalism, there is a way to do this. We know how it's done. It's called authoritarianism. I prefer not to live that way, but it does work. So if that's what you want, those are the options, and that's why Lee Kuan Yew said that. Raspy Block 06A says, not a question. Thank you, Auron. Well, thank you very much, man. I appreciate you supporting the show and listening in. Florida Henry says, I feel we are trapped in a doom loop. Again, I don't want to black people here, but we do need to take things seriously. This is a recoverable situation, but the only option is victory, guys. It always was. We were always gonna have to fight for every single inch. And there's no way. The only way out is through, and it always has been. Wild Speaker says, I never wanted to care about my tribe. I bought the MLK dream and thought it was a good deal. I will try to steel my heart against hatred, but I want my people to thrive, and I don't want to be ashamed anymore. Yeah, this is where so many people are right now, man. Like you said, I grew up as a good, mainstream talk radio conservative, colorblind, everything sounds great, fantastic. Somewhere in my heart, this is still what I want. But I can't stop seeing people talking like this, being like, we've got to get all of my identity politics into the Republican Party. Gay, black, Asian, Jew. These are the people who need to be the dominant force in the Republican Party now. I can't watch people say this straight up, who have like access to, big platforms, who are on big platforms in the conservative movement, and then be like, well, I can't notice this anymore. Like you said, you shouldn't hate people, okay? Again, especially as Christians, we should not hate people due to their ethnicity. You should not let hate fester in your heart. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't protect your family, your community, even if that community and family happens to be full of white people. It turns out, actually, they should be defended too. They should have a seat at the table too. Their interests should exist too. Doesn't mean that we need DEI for white people. It doesn't mean that the Republican Party just has to become the party of white people. But it does mean, I'm sorry, you have to stop pretending like this isn't what's happening here. It's very clear, especially when we get videos like Rob's, about what people really want. Elijah Timon says, Israel does give us intel on terror groups. Just never mind the fact that 90% of the reason these groups hate us is our Israeli support. I mean, again, right, there's some truth to that. But even then, I don't want to completely discount the fact that there is something we get from Israel. Like, I want to give the other side its druthers, right? Like, I want to make a steel man, not a straw man of their position. So, all right, they're giving us valuable intelligence. I'll go with that. I might have some issues like the one you raised, but we'll go with that. Even then, it cannot be worth what we're paying for it. Sorry, they're not giving us $4 billion in intelligence. And that $4 billion is just the starting point of our Israeli aid. Remember, we're giving them missiles, we're giving them weapons, we're giving them systems, we're giving them people to train all that stuff. We're sending carrier groups to the Middle East to reinforce their strikes. Like, it's not just $4 billion. But even if it was just $4 billion, and we really were getting super valuable intelligence for $4 billion, I'd rather just spend $4 billion on our intelligence agencies. No one makes an argument to me as to why we can't do that. No one ever bothers. Wild Speaker says, have you ever listened to Volbeat? Thoughts? I can't say that I have. Sorry. Is that a metal band? I'm not. It might be. I just haven't heard of that one yet. Random username says, everyone watch the 1997 HBO film The Second Civil War. Accurately predicts all of this down to the foreigners running for government. Yeah, that must have been 1997 if HBO was cranking out stuff like that. I'll have to check that out. Never heard of it. Thank you. Philosophical Thirstworm says, even my local GOP state reps only talk about foreign policy 90% of the time. It's nuts what this party is. Yeah, I think everyone is tired of this. I don't care about a country the size of New Jersey in the Middle East. I don't care. I don't want to care. I don't want ever to care again. I don't want to hate it. I don't want to love it. I have the George Washington version of foreign policy. If you want to call George Washington an anti-Semite, go ahead, because that's my foreign policy. I don't want extended alliances with any nation, just like George Washington said. We can have commercial relationships. We can have temporary alliances for specific missions. I do not want extended, open-ended, oh, this is my best friend, and if you don't agree with them, then you get thrown out of the country. No, that is not what any country should be, including Israel. It would be gross if people said it about Germany or the UK or Ukraine or any of these countries. It's just as bad when they say it about Israel. Herb Seasoning says the Elite Theory appreciator fears 30 minutes of polyrhythms. I'm a big prog fan, obviously, but I get it. Thanks, bud. Yeah, man. Again, it's not like I fear it. Again, I can listen to and appreciate it. But just, if you're asking me, hey, what do you put on? Now don't get me wrong. There is some technical, like I actually like the death metal band Death, one of the earliest death metal bands, and one that is particularly, I think, mechanically gifted, but I think also does some melodically impressive stuff. Symphony X is another progressive power metal band that I really like, because I think they really do walk that line right between progressive but still listenable. I'm just saying there is a line once it gets crossed. I'm not going to be spinning the record on a regular basis. Altheus says, after failing to conserve anything, the conservative movement is now failing to conserve itself. Yeah, sadly, I think that's an accurate diagnosis. Also says, MAGA getting taken over by never Trumpers is quite a fascinating conquest law on speed. Yeah, again, if you're familiar with, unfortunately, the history of conservative movement, there's no surprise there. If you'd like to read guys like Paul Gottfried, who have written entire books on this, I encourage you to. But it really, as sad as it is, it really is just more of a repeat than a new episode. Sherry Coke Nixon says 90% of the reason these groups hate us in part is 1400 eternal war that wages against infidels and Christians. 20th century was just a pause. Yeah, again, like the fact that Islam has been on an anti-Christian tear since basically it was born is not an indication that it's going to like stop now because we sprinkled magical like classical liberalism dust over these people. But it seems like there's just nothing you can do to stop conservatives from believing that lie over and over and over again. Guildhelm, the titanic effort of encouraging our guys to have hard hearts, sharp minds, Israel Jews, only to see anti-Semitism task forces requiring you to attend Shabbat dinner next day. Again, I'd be careful with the phrase hard hearts. And I'd also be careful with Israel/Jews there. Again, I'm not trying to be politically correct at all here. I am just making real, what I think are real delineations. I think that our opponents conflate Israel and Jews when it's convenient for them, and we should work to keep them separate. I think it's very clear that kind of pro-Zionist, like rabidly pro-Zionist people regularly say, well, if you disagree with Israel, you hate Jews, right? And so I really want to avoid conflating that. There are many, many Jews who are openly anti-Israel. There are many Jewish conservatives I know who are fine with Israel, but have no interest in like being there or making that a priority. But there are some that do. And for the ones that do, conflating Israel and Jews is always a mistake. And you shouldn't, I think it's a tactical error to do that. Also, like I said, I understand when you say that the hard heart, I get that phrase. We obviously need a higher constitution, but I would just say that Christ requires us to love, even people who are often our opponents. And there's a larger discussion, I think a good one to be had, on what it means to love your enemy. We can get into that. But I would just say, be careful with throwing around the phrase harden your heart. So I would just say that. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I want to thank everybody so much for coming by. It's been great speaking with you. If it's your first time on this channel, of course, you need to go ahead and click subscribe on YouTube. Click the bell, notifications, all that stuff so you know when we go live. If you want to get these broadcasts, add podcasts, make sure that you subscribe to the Auron MacIntyre Show on your favorite podcast platform. And when you do, leave a rating or review. It really helps with the algorithm magic. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And as always, I will talk to you next time.